Hello there, my name is Edera Wangui from Kodarasa, and today we're going to cover order of execution. So we do have order of execution, and we have the way the query is written. For instance, you can have a query, let's look at an example, with select all from student. So the order is really select and then from. And then there's the order of execution, which is how the query will actually be computed. And why is it important to know this information? For one, really the main reason is because it helps us write our queries in a more efficient ways, understand how to optimize it better, maybe group something that you could have grouped earlier, or deal with a less result set, something like that. So that's what order of execution, like understanding the order of execution, will help you with. So let's look at the order of execution. What are some steps? So starting out, from keyword is the first thing to be executed, and this gets the actual table we're dealing with. So determine the total set of data. Closely next to it is join, because this is where you join other tables. So you want to start with all the totals, like all the data sets, all the data you want at the beginning. So that's the first thing you do. So from, and then join if it exists. It also fetches data from subqueries. So that's where we start when dealing with order of execution. The next thing before from and join or join is where. So here is where we now start filtering. We get only the required rows and discard the rest. We're going to look at examples of these, don't worry. The next thing, so from where, we go to group by, and here we're now grouping based on a specific column. Each group has one key and a list of rows that satisfy that key. The next one after that is having. Having is now putting a constraint on now the groupings you've created using group by. So you understand why having is coming after group by. So just to reiterate, from and or join, and then we go to where. So this is the first filtering on all this data we have, and then we go to group by. We now want to group our data, and then having helps us have another filter over these groupings we have, and then at the end of the day we get to select. So you may think select is where we start, but select comes after all these steps. So select here is where we fetch the data we want to be selected. Coming closely is distinct. So distinct is now trying to dedupe and give you only the unique rows. So that's an extra step, and then that's why it comes after select. So select, and then after that distinct, because you want all the values first, and then after that you want to deduplicate them. So the last one, no, actually not the last one. So the next one is order by. So now that you have your data, you've filtered it, you've grouped it, you have gotten the unique values, we now want to order by. So if order by exists, then this is where it comes. We'll look at this in place, so don't worry about this. Of course, order by sorts your data based on ascending or descending based on a specific column. And lastly, this is where you have your top, your offset, your limit, depending on the database you're using. So take specified rows only and discard the rest. And that's your order of execution. So let's actually look at them on specific queries. So for instance, we have this query here, select all from student. As you know here, that means we'll first execute the from. Let me add it as a comment. We'll execute the from and then the select. Let's look at another one. We have select columns from student and columns from classroom, and then after that we join the classroom, and then where classroom name is equal to Kifaro. So in this case, we start with from the student, and then we join the classroom table, after which where then we put the condition where the classroom is called Kifaru, and once we're done with that, then we go back to our select. All right, let's look at another one. Select all from student where is prefect. So let's run these queries. So this one gives me all the students. I can see they're 19. Here, I join to the classroom and then get where the name is Kifaru and then select the specific columns. The next one, select all from student where is prefect. So all the students that are prefects. So from, then we go to where, and then we go to select, and there you have it. Let's go to the next one. Select count all level of education from teacher group by level of education. So I've put this here so you can reference. Let me put it close. I do have this my so we can keep referencing this as we go so that you also check on your end. I felt at the top there you couldn't see it. I mean, of course you can see it, it's at the top. Anyway, so select count all level of education from teacher group by level of education. So we have seen how these queries are written, so I'm not going to go into the basics of how group bys are written. Please reference my initial videos on this, introduction to SQL, and many more. I have many videos on this, so don't fret, you will get to understand all this. So in this query, let's first run it. We are first getting from teacher, after which we go and group by our data by level of education. So we have all data from teachers and then we group this data by level of education, after which we now select the count of these groupings and then the level of education, as you can see. So we started with from, then we went to group by, and we ended with select, and there we have it. All right, let's do something more exciting. So I'm going to run this in two parts. It has select, from, group by, having, order by. I like that. So let's first start with just having, let's ignore the grouping, group by, the order by part. So we have select count all as class count, class ID, from student, group by, class ID, having count all is greater than 3. Let's run this. So in what it's doing, first gets the data from the student, then we group this data using the class ID, and then after that we now have a filter on top of this grouping, which is class ID, and this filter is having everywhere the count is greater than 3, then give me only those records. And then after that we now select count all as class count, class ID, and you can see from our results we have 559231. We now, as you can see, we have an alias here as class count, and you may be asking yourself, why can't we use this alias here? Like in place of having count all, have class count. You can pause this video and ask yourself that question. Alright, I assume you paused and figured out the answer, but here's the answer. We first get from student, after which we group by. So looking at the order of execution, from, join, where, group by. We first get all the data from student, after which we group by. Going through the sequential steps, we have from, join, where, group by. So group by is our second thing, is our second statement. And then after that we have having, and then we give the condition, after which we have select. So notice select is coming after having. Because of this, at this point we don't have access to class count, and that's why we can't use class count here. It will error because column class count does not exist. At this point SQL does not know about it yet. So that's why we had to use count all again to do that work. All right, now that solves for having. Let me just have these two. So we'll have from, then we have group by, then we have having, and finally select. Awesome. Good progress so far. All right, now let's include the order by part. So now that we've looked up to select, then we have distinct. We're not working with distinct, so it doesn't come in here. And then after that, we have order by. So notice order by is coming after select. And that's why here we're able to order by class count. We don't have to say count all, count star anymore. So at this point, we do have access to the class count alias, and we can use it. Of course, you can still use count star here. It's not so neat, I mean, especially when you have an alias, but yeah, you can now use the alias under order by, and if it was possible after limit, but that's not possible. But yeah, under order by, we have access to all the select columns, and that means all the aliases that have been created at this point. From, of course, then we are followed by group by, then having, and then select, and finally order by. Yes, we are almost close to the end. And then after that, let's look at another one. We have select distinct class ID from student. So we start with from, get all the students. After that, we select the class IDs, after which then it narrows it down by removing any duplicates. So without the distinct, this is what we have: select class ID. The count is 19 rows. So put back the distinct, and now we will have 3, because we have 3 unique classes. So coming back here, we have from, then select, and we end with distinct. Awesome. And let's do our last query. So we have select all from student limit 5. So we get all the students, after which we select the columns we need. And once we select all the columns we need, they now get me the top 5, limit only 5. Give me the offset. This is where your limit, your offset, and top is coming in. Of course, top is not for Postgres, but you understand what I mean. So when we run this, we'll get all the students, but only the top 5. And that's it. From, select, and limit. I hope you learned a lot about the order of execution, and that's actually it. That's most of the queries. You can now play around with most of the queries you interact with, but I think this covers most of the basics to get you started. So just a recap: we start with from, followed by, so from followed by join if it exists, so from and or join. Then we have where, then we have group by, then we have having, and then we have our select, and then we have our distinct if it exists, and then we have order by, and finally we have limit. And that's all for order of execution. I hope you've learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you next in more of our videos. Come back, and happy learning. Thank you. Bye.